Krishnamurti said, "There is no afterlife." Then he said, "Nothing dies." Krishnamurti gave spiritual seekers the answer they least wanted. No soul, no afterlife, no reincarnation, no little spiritual me floating out of the body and continuing somewhere else. When the body dies, the elements return to the elements. The atoms scatter. The organism is finished. That sounds brutal. But then Yuji said something that sounds almost exactly like the ancient sages. In reality, nothing is born and nothing is dead. So which is it? Do we die completely, or were we never born in the first place? This is not just philosophy. This is the fear underneath almost everything: death. And if we understand this contradiction, we may understand why Yuji and the sages are closer than they appear. Yuji was not interested in comforting spiritual language. He did not give people a soft place to land. If you came to him wanting reassurance that your soul survives death, he was not going to hand you that. To Yuji, what we call the person is a movement of memory, thought, conditioning, sensation, fear, desire, and biological response. The body is alive. The brain is functioning. Thought creates a story around that functioning and calls it me. And when the body dies, that story does not go somewhere. The name ends, the memories end, the private world ends. The little sinner that says, "I am Joe," or "I am Greg," or "I am Tyler," "I'm this person with this history, this family, this face, this pain, this hope," that does not continue as some improved spiritual character in another dimension. That is the part Yuji refuses to romanticize. He's not saying, "Don't worry, you will personally survive." He is saying something much harder. The you who wants to survive is the illusion. That is why his teaching feels so cold at first. He's not killing your hope. He is exposing the one who needs hope. Now compare that to the traditional non-dual language. The sages say, "You were never born. You will never die. You are not the body. You are not the mind. You are the deathless self, the awareness in which the body and mind appear." The Bhagavad Gita says the real cannot be destroyed. Nisargadatta points again and again to the unborn awareness prior to the person. The non-dual traditions tell you that what you truly are was never created and therefore cannot come to an end. On the surface, this sounds like the exact opposite of Yuji. Yuji says no soul, no afterlife, no reincarnation. The sages say you are eternal. One sounds like a coroner, the other sounds like scripture. But the contradiction starts to dissolve when we ask one question: what do they mean by you? Because if you means the personal story, Yuji is right. And if you means the awareness before the story, sages are pointing somewhere else entirely. This is where most spiritual confusion begins. When the sages say, "You never die," the seeker hears, "Great, this person survives, my story continues, my identity is safe. I get to keep being me, just without the body." But that is not non-duality. That is just ego with better lighting. The sages were not promising survival to the psychological self. They were pointing to what is prior to the psychological self. Awareness is not born when your biography begins. The sense of being is here before the story gets added. Before your name, before your history, before your opinions, before your spiritual path, there is the simple fact of being. Yuji refuses to decorate that with sacred language. He does not want you worshiping awareness, chasing the self, or imagining some eternal spiritual identity. But when he says nothing is born and nothing is dead, he's cutting into the same place. The person is born and dies. The story begins and ends. The organism appears and disappears. But reality itself is not a personal event. Life is not born as me, and it does not die as me. That is the subtle point. The person does not become immortal. The illusion of being only a person collapses. This is also why I wrote, I do not exist and neither do you. Not because the body is not here, not because life is not happening, not because love, family, pain, and death do not matter, but because the separate psychological self we are trying so hard to protect cannot be found. And that changes everything. The fear of death is really the fear of losing the me. But if that me was never as solid as we believed, death starts to look different. Still serious, still human, still painful when someone we love dies, but not the final destruction of what we truly are. I also wrote about this from the other side in You Are Already It, because what we are looking for is not somewhere after death. It is not waiting in heaven in the future, or at the end of a spiritual achievement. It is already the ground of this moment. The books are linked below for anyone who wants to go deeper. So let's make this plain. What dies? The body dies. The nervous system dies. The personality dies. Private memories die. The face, the name, opinions, preferences, the wounds, the achievements, all of that belongs to time. Yuji is ruthless about this because seekers use spirituality to protect the very thing that must be seen through. We want awakening to mean, I survive, I become eternal, I win over death. But non-duality is not the survival of the ego. It is seeing that the ego is never the center of reality. The sages say you never die because what you truly are is not the person. Yuji says you do die because the person is all most people mean when they say me. Both are attacking the same confusion from opposite ends. Personal self does not survive. The real was never personal. That is the whole doorway. This is not just about what happens after the last breath. This changes how you live before it. If I believe I am only this separate self, then everything becomes a defense project. I have to protect my image, protect my future, protect my beliefs, protect my spiritual progress, protect my legacy, protect the idea of me. And underneath all of that is death. But if the separate self is not what I am, then life can relax. Not because the body will last forever, it will not. Not because grief disappears, it does not. But because the center we are defending begins to lose its grip. Life is still lived, love still matters, work still matters, family still matters, but the panic around the little me softens. That is where Yuji and the sages meet. Not in a comforting afterlife story, not in a spiritual fantasy, but in the collapse of the false center. So does Yuji say death is the end? Yes, for the person you think you are. Do the sages say you never die? Yes, if we are speaking of what was never personal, never born, never inside the body as a separate thing. No soul, no afterlife, nothing born, nothing dead. That sounds like a contradiction until the me at the center of it begins to disappear. And maybe that is the real edge of awakening. Not finding a way to survive death, but seeing what you are before the fear of death ever appears. Subscribe, and I'll see you at the next contradiction.